An interesting free agency development here as we approach the end of August. Malik Beasley, sharpshooter for the Detroit Pistons, no longer a target of that federal gambling investigation that he was in. Cost him some money at the beginning of free agency, still sitting out there now. Could the Sixers look to bring him in? That'll be today's poll question for you guys. Should the Sixers look to sign Malik Beasley? We're going to talk about Beasley, his situation, who he is as a player on today's show. But before we get into all that, I want to know your thoughts first. So give me an S for sign, P for pass. Join the conversation down in the comments. Let's get started with today's show. You're watching 76ers now. Jake Chipper here with you. As I mentioned off the top, Malik Beasley, no longer a target of that federal gambling investigation, didn't get charged with anything, didn't get arrested or anything like that. He no longer is being investigated. So his sights are now set on signing a deal to get back in the NBA and recoup some of the money he lost by not being able to sign with somebody earlier in the free agency period because of the investigation. Shams Charania breaking the news early this morning here on August 22nd that his attorneys announced that he is no longer a part of that investigation, reopening his free agency for, again, a player that, we're not just talking about someone that would have been sitting here in free agency anyways. Malik Beasley would have signed a pretty lucrative contract by now if this had not happened. A true sharpshooter when you talk about the top guys in the NBA in that regard. And last year had a career season from behind the arc. Was a big reason that Detroit Pistons team was able to have the resurgence and that great year that they did. Over 16 points a game, shooting over 40% from three while also taking 9 threes a game. And he's bounced around a little bit in previous seasons, but really seemed like he had found a home in Detroit. Of course, they were looking to re-sign him, and then the whole gambling situation did happen. And when I got to the playoffs, of course, the Pistons did end up losing to the New York Knicks. Beasley not quite as efficient, as effective as he was in the regular season, but you still see almost 10 three-point attempts a game for Beasley. Only shot about 34%, but just a player who is a threat to take that many shots in a game from beyond the arc, who was as good in the regular season as he was, is a very, very valuable piece, especially in today's NBA. And we'll get into more on his advanced shooting numbers here in a little bit, but bring this to the Sixers' perspective, right? Would they be able to bring him in at this point in the offseason? How much will it cost to sign Beasley, who, again, would have probably signed for over $10 million, up to $15 million a year earlier in the offseason? The Sixers can really only offer the vet min. Now, technically, because Quentin Grimes is not signed, they could use some of the mid-level exception, but I'm operating under the assumption, as I have for the past month or so, really all offseason long, that Quentin Grimes will be back. So Philadelphia will only have the vet min to offer Malik Beasley. And will he be willing to take a vet min, especially given, some of the money he has lost? I'm not so sure. Now, Ian Begley broke down some of the financials as it comes to Beasley, because that's going to be a big impact on where he does end up signing, and of course, for how much. So, Detroit, you have to figure, is going to be in play to bring Beasley back. It was a great fit over there last season. They could offer Beasley $7.2 million. Again, less than what he probably would have got. That's probably the most he can get at this point. Now, some other teams do still have some or all of the $6-ish million taxpayer mid-level. Beasley did have a 3-year, $42 million deal lined up with Detroit before the reports came out. So that is now off the table. They don't have that money anymore. And again, he has not been arrested or charged with anything to date. So that's kind of where his financial situation is at right now. If I'm the Sixers or a team in Philadelphia's position where you're ideally looking to compete for a title this year, I know with the Sixers, there's a long way to go before we can get to that point. There's a lot of talent on the roster, and ideally you are one of the better teams in the East. Can you convince yourself as a contending team to tell Malik Beasley, bet on yourself this year, take a smaller contract, because there's not a whole lot of money out there anyways with the way NBA free agency has gone, now winding down free agency. Take that smaller deal, up your value for 1 year, still just 28 years old. You can get a bigger contract next off season. So it'll really come down to what Beasley is prioritizing. Is he prioritizing money, or is he prioritizing a situation where he can get a lot of playing time, score a bunch of points, and get a bigger contract next offseason? I can't predict that. That's totally up to Malik Beasley himself. Now, coming up just around the corner, I'm going to tell you why I think Philadelphia should at least attempt to sign Malik Beasley. I know the guard situation here in Philadelphia, it's loaded, and we'll get into all of that, but I do believe he should sign, or the Sixers should try to sign Malik Beasley. Before I dive into my thoughts and my reasonings here, today's 76ers now brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Of course, preseason football underway. College football is finally here, and you don't want to miss any of the action this season on Prize Picks. It's very, very simple to play. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup is not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. And right now, you can play $5 and get $50 instantly in bonus lineups after you sign up and use the code CLNS. Again, play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups if you use the code CLNS. Speaking of the football season getting underway here shortly, one of the things I love about Prize Picks is the discounts that they are always handing out throughout the year. Right now, there's a max discount on Dak Prescott. I know a lot of Eagles fans out there, we all hate Dak Prescott, but a half passing yard, I think Dak is going to throw for more than a half passing yard on opening night against the Philadelphia Eagles. So you can take that max discount like I've done here and pair that with a couple other players. I got Jalen Hurts more than half a rushing or receiving touchdown. Little tush push, get in there in the end zone. And then Saquon Barkley more than 92 and a half rushing yards. Cowboys, awful rushing defense. First game of the year. Saquon going to go crazy. So that's how it works. It's as easy as that. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So I got 3 main reasons here why I think the Sixers should be interested on bringing in Malik Beasley. And look, number one, Philadelphia was a horrible three-point shooting team last season. And I know some of the guys you would normally expect to be good three-point shooters weren't, but they just couldn't hit a lot of threes. And to win in today's NBA, you have to hit a lot of threes. And there's really nobody better at that in the NBA than Malik Beasley. You take a look at the Sixers last season, right? They were 17th in three-point attempts per game, so right about middle of the pack, but 27th in three-point percentage, 4th worst in the league. That just simply is not going to cut it. And, you hope to have Jared McCain for a full season. That should help. You hope Paul George can make an improvement from that regard. You hope Maxey can get his percentages back up, but you could always use more threats from behind the arc. You can never have enough. And we're not just talking about a good three-point shooter. We're talking about one of the best in the NBA. I said we're going to look more into his numbers from this past year. The three-point made leaders from this past year, the guys who knocked down the most total threes over the entire season. Anthony Edwards, number 1. Malik Beasley, number 2. More than Steph Curry. Absolutely insane. Just one off the leader in Anthony Edwards. And to dive even deeper into how impressive Beasley was last year, again, and what was probably a career year for him. 1st in bench points per game. 2nd in three-pointers off the bench. 2nd in points for his playoff team, the Detroit Pistons, of course. The 5th player ever in NBA history with 300-plus three-pointers in a year, and the most threes ever by a Detroit Pistons, joining the Splash Bros, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. The only players ever, again, him, Steph, Klay, with 300-plus threes on 40% three-point shooting in a season. Again, not just a good shooter, an elite shooter. Every team, every roster on the NBA has space for a guy like this. It also forces your hand at guard if you were to bring in Malik Beasley. And what do I mean by that, right? We talked about the Sixers having a lot of guards on the roster, right? Especially once you consider bringing in Quentin Grimes, you imagine he'll be back. And then also considering bringing in Malik Beasley, that's another couple of guards to add to this already guard heavy roster. So, what do I mean by this forces your hand? I think you have two open roster spots right now. One goes to Grimes, one goes to Beasley. This would force Daryl Morey to look at the influx of guards and trade Eric Gordon. Get him out of here. I never wanted him back on this roster, regardless. He said he wants to play 20 years in the NBA. I don't need Eric Gordon for the next few seasons. And you could run out a guard rotation of Maxey McCain, BJ Edgecombe, Grimes, and Beasley. And some of those guys have flexibility to play the three as well. And then trading Gordon still opens up a roster spot to bring in one of the two-way guys. So that would force Daryl Morey's hand to move off of Eric Gordon, basically replace Eric Gordon with Malik Beasley, which is a massive, massive upgrade for Philadelphia. And finally, you got to sign him because you can't let the New York Knicks get Malik Beasley. They already stole Gershon Yabusele from you in this offseason, and apparently New York is in on trying to land Malik Beasley. Back to Ian Begley here. The Knicks, among teams that had done background work on Beasley's situation, how likely, unlikely a suspension was for Beasley, ESPN reports that Beasley is no longer a target of the gambling investigation, as we mentioned. New York, though, currently has the vet min to offer to free agents. So a similar situation to the Sixers. It would be a disaster if you let them get Beasley as well, when the Sixers could have also signed Malik Beasley to a vet minimum. So with all that we talked about here today, I know a lot of you probably at the beginning of the show didn't love the idea of bringing in another guard in Malik Beasley. But did I change your mind? Did I convince you that it would actually be a smart signing for Philadelphia? Or are you staying pat? You think it would not be a good signing? Revisiting today's poll question, let me know. Should the Sixers sign Malik Beasley? Give me an S for sign or a P for pass. That'll do it for today's show. The NBA season getting closer and closer. And the closer we get, the more you'll need to be up to date on everything going on with the Philadelphia 76ers. So hit that sub button, lock us in, turn on notifications so you never miss a thing. And we'll see you next time right here on 76ers Now.